Welcome to Lab 3 for Android mobile development. In this lab, we're going to take the basic calculator that we worked on before, and we're going to make some changes to it, and we're going to use the debugger, and we're going to use logcat to really detect and find any kind of errors that might arise, whether they be logic errors or runtime errors. Syntax errors are another type of errors, but our application would not really even compile if we had any syntax errors. So what we're going to try to find are logic errors or runtime errors. So using the basic calculator that we worked on before, what you want to try to do is take most of the Java code that you have from behind the scenes and the all your XML and take that and use that as a good starting point, so that we should start out with that and then end up looks more like this, where it has more functions. We're going to call this fix broken app. That's our next one that we're going to work on, and we're going to get ready for that right now. So the first thing I've done is copied into my clipboard all the code that is in the code behind in the Java file and in the XML. Just remember, when you go to copy it, you have to be careful about, making sure that everything is just right with the project name and things like that. So, we can't just cut and paste exactly, but if you're cutting and pasting smartly, you'll definitely get it to compile at least. So that's a good start. I just put everything, all the Java code and the XML into my notepad so that I can close this project, and now I can start a new one, and we'll call this Fix Broken App Smith. So I'm going to start a new Android Studio project again, and just like we've done before, we'll call it Fix My Broken App Smith. Okay. We'll again target KitKat, blank activity, fix my broken app, and we'll say finish. Okay, so we have our starting point, and we can, inside of the XML, we can take all of our code between the relative layout points and really just kind of paste that in. That's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to remove the hello world and paste in all of the different widgets that I need. And we're starting off with the basic calculator. So I have all the XML for my other project over there. And now all I have to do is paste in all the Java code that would be needed. Okay, so I have all the Java code that I took from the other mobile app. My basic calculator, I put in the imports that I needed. I created my class level variables that I needed. I modified all the listener. I added the listener and all the buttons that I needed, and then pasted in the on-click handler inside that button listener. Oops. Inside the button listener class here, we created a private one, button listener class that we're overriding, and we set everything up there. And then the last method was the compute, and that's all set to go. And again, just took everything and made sure that it was functional, and I just did 8 times 8 just to make sure, and it looks like it's working. So you want to start out, make sure that it works, make sure you don't have any syntax errors. Now, there are some problems with this application, right? We can't seem to click on decimal places, and the application really wasn't made for decimal places. It kind of only handles integers. So we want to take it to the next level of a calculator, and we want to try to have something that maybe looks like this, where we have memory functions and more operations that we can perform, like square roots and log functions and maybe modulus and percentage. So there's a lot more functionality, and hopefully with this one we'll be able to also put in some decimal places. So we're just going to kind of build off this, the last calculator in this next lab. Let's first work on the UI portion of what we want to do. Then we'll break the video lecture into another part, which will be the code behind. That way you can watch it in 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. So the first part will be the UI, and we're going to change the UI a little bit. We had the clear button there, and we're going to take that out. We're going to create a new row that's going to handle all of our memory clear, memory store, memory recall, and then we can perform plus and minus on the what is in memory. And that's kind of how standard calculator would work. So the first row that we're going to work on is the clear. So the clear one that we want to work on is right here. It's the first table row. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take that out, and we're going to put in, I put in the button memory clear. Let's kind of pop that up so we can see. So we're going to put in the memory clear, the memory recall. We got the memory store, the memory plus, and then below that would be the memory minus. And so that's our first table row. Just make sure you give it an ID. And for the text, make sure that you put something that will fit in that space. And 2 letters, MR, MS, M plus, M minus. That seemed to work pretty good for what I was doing. So if you could complete that, that will get the first row complete. Then the next row that we want to work on would be the back button, and we want to have the clear buttons, be able to add, do like a minus type value so that it's negative, and then we've got the square root button there. So that's the next set of buttons that we'll work on. We'll just add another table row below this, and that should work out pretty well. So we can go over to the design and see how well we're doing. And so we have the first row laid out, and notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Now we still have 4 below it, but we're going to expand that. And if we look, we do have 4 here. So everything is laid out nice. We are spanning one of the columns here, so for the equal sign. So when we get down there, we'll rework that also. Now for this portion, I added the next row that you can see here, where we're performing some more operations on it with log, using the log function and the tangent, the cosine. So we're going to add these buttons also to it. You might want to pause the video to create these table rows, really not, it's very repetitious, right? I mean, you just have to go in, make sure that you give it a unique identifier, and then just put the correct text on it. So just go down and put in ln, sin, cos, tan, and log. So we have these three new rows that we've added to our calculator, adding much more functionality. So just take some time and make sure that these are all unique and that, I mean, it'll underline it if it's not, but just if you are going to cut and paste, just be keep a sharp eye out to keep everything unique and make sure that you have it matching the text and the button that's going to perform that operation. The next row contains our numbers and 7, 8, 9, and we also had the operator divide. So I'm going to add one more button, which would be %. So if we look at our design, we now have 7, 8, 9. We've got our division operator, and I added a %. So we're going to add some more down here, right in that right area, and we're going to move some things around to make it look a little better. But that's pretty much what we're going for. We added the % right next to the divide. On the next line, I added the reciprocal, so you can see we've got 1 over, so that lines up right underneath, right? So we just added that right there. And it's coming out nice. So go down to the next row and we'll add another one. On the next row, I added the modulus. So I just called it mod and put in MD. So if we look at our design, we've added all these buttons plus all these buttons here. Okay, that looks good. So we really have one more row to work on. For the last row, what I did was I swapped the plus and the equals, and then I added a layout span of 2. So let's take a look at the design. And now I have it spanning across 2 columns, and the plus is on this side. We have our % and we have our 0. So that looks pretty good. If we go back to our layout of what we wanted it to look like, yeah, that looks pretty good. We could let's try to run it, and let's just see if it comes out looking like we want it. And it does. It looks pretty good. So that's the first step, is to lay out the UI, and then what we can do from there is we can actually start putting in the Java code, which will be in the next video that you can watch, which will be the code behind that we'll do for Fix My Broken App.